Welcome to EPG Pathashala. I am Dr. T. Seshasai, retired Associate Professor of Philosophy, National College, Tiruchirappalli. Now we are going to learn a paper called Indian Religion and Philosophy, especially the module on Hinduism. Hinduism is a popular and one of the major religions of the world. It is a religion which has no founder. It is called Apaurusheya. It is also called Sanatana Dharma or the eternal religion by Indian thinkers. It is recognized as a philosophy or a practice which has unity in diversity. Swami Vivekananda used to say that it is not unity in diversity, it is unity in variety. So, Hinduism assimilates, associates and emanates all principles that are existing in this world. Now, let us see the objectives of this learning part. Hinduism as a religion, Hinduism as a way of life, religious practices in Hinduism, liberation in Hinduism. Philosophy has sprung from religion and has developed along with religion. Philosophy minus religion becomes unthinkable in India. That philosophy and religion have always been associated with each other. The reason for this close association is that the objective of both is the same, that is, to make man realize his ultimate end or moksha. The modern concept is religion is studied separately or science is separately studied and philosophy is studied separately in the modern days or in the modern western part of the world. But in India, whenever you say Indian religion or Indian philosophy or Indian culture, all the systems or all schools or all thoughts are rolled into one. You can see political science, you can see economics, you can see culture, you can see philosophy, you can see religion, everything is rolled into one and then it is called Hinduism. It is actually all comprehensive, it encompasses all the aspects of human life. Hinduism is a philosophy, a way of life and also a course of faith, and it is often equated with a great giant banyan tree in whose shade thousands of faiths bloom. Hindu was principally a geographical term that referred to India or to a religion or region of India near the Sindhu. The word Hindu is derived from the river Sindhu or Indus. The Persians found the inhabitants of the Sindhu valley were all impressed with their civilization and culture. They called them Sindhus, taking into consideration their distinct mode of life, and it is this word that has metamorphosed into Hindu and Hinduism. Now the picture shows where the Hinduism actually emerged. It is Indus Valley civilization. It is a religion which has evolved through the experiences of several people and has gone through several transformations. Hence it is called Sanatana Dharma, the ancient and eternal religion. As its name Sanatana Dharma implies, it is based on certain eternal principles and values of life which hold good for all people for all time, irrespective of personalities involved. Therefore, Sanatana Dharma means the religion based on the eternal sustaining values of life. Hinduism is unique as it had no single founder or a single book as a source. Most of the beliefs and practices of Hinduism are based on the teachings of the Vedas, Agamas, Upanishads and several books written based on these texts. It stands unique in the sense that it is the only non-prophetic religion in the world. That is why I have already mentioned in my introduction, Hinduism is Apaurusheya. There is no author, there is no single author, there is no founder, and you can have a lot of books or a lot of source materials on Hinduism, and there is no single book and we can pinpoint that single book gives a detailed explanation on Hinduism, because at each and every yuga or at each and every stage of life, one saint appeared and then he gave and he guided the common people or layman and guided through his advice or suggestions to lead a good life, to lead a righteous life and attain moksha. There are two fundamental doctrines which are the cornerstones of Hinduism. They are the doctrine of karma and the doctrine of reincarnation. Both these doctrines are inseparably intertwined. Hindu deities, you can have all sorts of deities. That is, usually they say that there are 33 crores of individual deities in Hinduism. And among them, Hindu Trinity is the most important. That is the Trinity. They are Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva. The picture on the slide shows the three deities, the most important deities, Shiva, Vishnu and Lord Brahma. In fact, these three perform the creation, sustenance and destruction. This shows this is for the ordinary man. That is, the powers of Brahma, as it appears in Upanishads, it has been separated, and in order to make the common man understand the powers of the ultimate reality, the unseen or the described in the Upanishads as Nirguna Brahman, they have actually anthropomorphized like this to make the common man understand the powers, that is creation, sustenance and destroyer of the same Brahman. Among the Hindu gods and goddesses, Lord Vishnu embodies goodness and mercy. Vishnu takes a human form to set it right because he is the preserver God. This human form is called avatara. They are 10 in number: Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Narasimha, Vamana, Parashurama, Srirama, Krishna, Buddha and Kalki. Goddess Lakshmi is the concept of Vishnu, and she is the goddess of light, beauty, good fortune and wealth. The picture shows the Dashavatara concept as explained in Vaishnavism, and the entire Dashavatara concept, or whatever may be the concept, it should revolve around one great sound or cosmic order called Rita, and the picture showed on the slide, it revolves around the Omkara. Om is the basic sound. Om consists of Akara, Bukara and Makara, and this Omkara is the basis, fundamental sound, which is the original sound and the first sound of the world. Shiva. Among the Trimurti, the Shiva is the destroyer or the transformer. Shiva is commonly worshipped as the Shivalinga. In images, he is mostly represented as immersed in deep meditation or dancing the Tandava upon the demon of ignorance in his expression of Nataraja, the Lord of Dance. His consort is Parvati. The most important goddess of Hinduism are Durga, Kali, Saraswati, Lakshmi, Parvati. Durga represents the power of the Supreme Being that preserves moral order and righteousness in the creation. Durga, the Divine Mother, protects mankind from evil and misery by destroying evil forms like selfishness, jealousy, prejudice, hatred, anger and ego. Kali is the Hindu goddess related with destruction. Despite her negative connotations, she is the goddess of time and change. She is represented as black and violet and pictured mostly in two forms, the popular four-armed form and 10-armed Mahashakti form. Here you see the Kali with the 10 arms, killing the ignorance, This is basic actually, whatever may be the form, whether it is God or goddess, the ultimate aim of all gods or goddesses is to annihilate ignorance. And that is picturized as a goddess or god killing a Rakshasa. The Rakshasa is nothing but our Anava Mala or our ego that should be destroyed, and that can be destroyed only by the grace of the Lord or the grace of the goddess. Saraswati, she is the concept of Brahma, and she appears in white clouded goddess, and she is the goddess of love and knowledge. She is the personality in learning, mind, intellect and alertness and ego. She is in general shown to have 4 arms, which represent the 4 aspects of human personality in learning, mind, intellect, alertness and ego. She always shown with a veena. This veena is actually through music, or it represents that through symphony you can attain moksha, through knowledge you can attain moksha, and these fetters are actually 22 in number, and it is normally say that she is a goddess of yoga also. She actually plays the veena as the siddhis, ashta siddhis, which comes from actually kindling the Kundalini Shakti. Kundalini Shakti is that force, that is, we cannot see this Kundalini Shakti with our naked eyes. The veena represents the spine of our body, and whenever knowledge or whenever meditation takes place, through pranayama, through yogic techniques, one can kindle the Kundalini Shakti and attain moksha. That is a concept which is actually depicted figuratively in the form of goddess Saraswati. Lakshmi is regarded as the goddess of wealth and prosperity. The word Lakshmi is derived from the Sanskrit word Lakshmi, and this means goal. Therefore, Lakshmi represents the goal of life, which includes worldly as well as spiritual prosperity. Parvati is the consort of Shiva, and in her unmarried state she is the Kali, who is known by the names of Maya, Sati and so on. Sometimes she is regarded as the supreme divine mother, and all other goddesses are referred to as her incarnations or expressions. Parvati symbolizes a number of noble virtues esteemed by the Hindu custom, sources of Hinduism. The scriptural literature of Hindus are broadly divided into 2 categories. They are Shruti and Smriti. The Shruti texts are God revealed, and Smriti texts are man realized. Shruti generally means that which is heard. Shrutis are divided into 4, and they are called Vedas. The Vedas are 4 in number. The etymological meaning of Veda is with, to know. Vedas are 4 in number: Rig, Yajur, Sama and Atharvana. And among these there are 4 divisions in each and every Veda. They are mantras, brahmanas, aranyakas and Upanishads. And these Upanishads are the source treatises for Vedanta. These Upanishads are totally 108 in number. The Upanishads, they are the end portions of the Vedas. We can call end of our knowledge. End of our knowledge is Mukti. So, Upanishads considers Mukti as the highest form of realization and highest goal of human life. So, they gave, or Upanishads delineates, explains around 32 vidyas to attain Mukti. Some of the yuktis or the margas are Dahara Vidya, Sri Vidya, Madhu Vidya and so on. So with these techniques called Vidyas, one can attain Mukti. So there are 108 Upanishads. Among them, 10 are the most important Upanishads, and Adi Shankara has commented on all 10 Upanishads. They are Isha, Kena, Kata, Prashna, Munda, Mandukya, Aitareya, Taitareya, Svetasvatara, Santogya, Brihadaranyaka. All these 10, they are commented by Adi Shankara. To know or to have knowledge of these Vedas or Vedanta, one should have the knowledge of Vedangas also. Vedangas are also as important as Vedas. Vedangas are 6 in numbers and they are called Shadangas. Shad Vedangas. Siksha, Kalpa, Nirukta, Jyotisha, Chandas are the 6. Without these, one cannot understand Vedas. The import of the Vedic learning or Vedic knowledge cannot be achieved without the help of Vedangas. So, our ancestors prescribed Vedangas are the basic to understand, or one should learn Vedangas, and Vedangas leads to the understanding of the Vedas. Now we come to Veda Upangas or 6 darshanas. The 6 darshanas are Shad darshanas as it is called. One is Nyaya, Vaiseshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Mimamsa of Jaimini. It is called Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa or Vedanta. Why it is called Purva Mimamsa means it depends on the Karma Kanda of the Vedas, and later that is Jnana Kanda is taken as source work by the Vedanta. The subject matter of the Vedas is broadly classified into 3 categories: Karma, Upasana and Jnana. The Karma Kanda discusses the duties of an individual, particularly of a householder, the rites and sacrifices that he must perform and how he should perform them. In Upasana Kanda, the theme is divine communion and worship. The Jnana Kanda is metaphysical disquisition about ultimate reality and the transience of ordinary sensory experience. Smritis are Dharma Shastras. The Smritis are human composition which is remembered and transmitted. They are large collections of rites and regulations for the individual in relation to his family, society, his ancestors and the gods. There are more than 18 in number and are compiled and collated by great sages of the past like Yajnavalkya, Manu and Parashara. They are also called Dharma Shastras because they lay down rules of conduct for a dharmic life to be observed by all, covering the entire span of life. Puranas and Itihasas. Puranas, the Vedic ideals into simple and understandable compositions commonly known as the Puranas and Itihasas. They are in the form of stories and narratives with a historic touch behind them, which not only impress the reader but also expound the philosophical truths in such a lucid style that a sincere spiritual aspirant will get spontaneous urges from within to live the ideals in his own life. Puranas have been defined as Pura Eva Navam iti Puranam, that which is most ancient and most modern at the same time is Purana. They are the richest collection of customary stories and teachings based on the spiritual philosophy of the Vedas and the Upanishads. Puranas must have 5 distinguishing topics: creation of universe, its destruction and renovation, the genealogy of gods and patriarchs, the reigns of Manu called Manvantaras, and the history of the solar and the lunar dynasties and their descendants. There are around 18 Puranas and they are divided into 3 categories. They are Brahma Puranas, Vaishnava Puranas, Shaiva Puranas. The Brahma Puranas are Brahma, Brahmanda, Brahma Vivatta, Markandeya, Bhavishya and Vamana. The Vaishnava Puranas are Vishnu, Naradiya, Bhagavata, Garuda, Padma and Varaha. Shaiva Puranas are Matsya, Kurma, Linga, Vayu, Skanda and Agni. In addition to these 18 Puranas, there are 46 Upa Puranas, out of which 18 are considered as most important. Itihasas, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. The Ramayana and Mahabharata are the two great epics of the Indian tradition. The Ramayana is regarded as the first poetical work on Adi Kavyam. Its traditional author, Valmiki, is the first Indian poet or Adi Kavi, since he was the first author in Sanskrit who produced slokas. The word Ramayana is a combination of Rama and Ayana, which means the travels of Rama. It consists of 24,000 verses or slokas in 7 cantos, namely Balakandam, Ayodhya Kandam, Kishkinda Kandam, Sundara Kandam, Yuddha Kandam, Uttara Kandam. The Ramayana, the picture you are seeing is the picture of Rama, Sita or Rama Pattabhishekam, and Anjaneya, the best example for devotee. He is also seen in this, and all the 4 brothers, they are waiting for his orders, for Lord Rama's orders. Mahabharata. One word, one sentence is enough to show the value of Mahabharata. What is here is everywhere, and what is not here is nowhere. That is the saying on the Mahabharata. You can see everything in Mahabharata. If you don't find any object or any topic in Mahabharata, you can never see in this world. You can see politics, you can have the knowledge of Puranas, you can have knowledge of genealogy, you can have the knowledge of morality, you can have the knowledge of highest knowledge called philosophy also. So it is actually a comprehensive work by Vyasa. The Mahabharata is one of the longest epic poems in the world with around 1 lakh slokas. It is the work of great sage Veda Vyasa, who is called Badarayana. It is divided into 18 sections or parvas. Through this great epic, Vyasa brought religion and value system more closely to common people. The central theme of work is Yato Dharma Tato Jaya, which means where there is Dharma, there is victory. The Gita, which forms an important part of it, can be considered as a treatise on ethics itself. The ethical ideals in the Gita gives us a clear picture about the development of Indian moral thought from its crude and rudimentary form in the Vedas to a very fine and elevated position as in the Gita. The picture on the screen depicts how Yudhishthira loses in the dice playing, and this is actually one of the 7 vyasanas, 7 addictions to be avoided by any individual. Many people think that since Dharmaraja played dice, we can also play. It is not like that. This is an example to show the addiction leads to destruction. So, one should not play the dice because Dharmaraja also played. One should not quote the authority or any treatise for his own convenience. It should be quoted for positive and personality development, not for destruction. The negative thinking should be avoided and the positive aspects alone should be taken whenever we quote any Shastra or any authority. That should be our approach. But the negative way of approach should be shunned by all. The paths of yoga. According to Hinduism, there are 4 different paths on the spiritual journey. They are Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga and Raja Yoga. Jnana Yoga is the way of knowledge and is based on the realization that bondage is due to ignorance. Jnana Yoga, the lack of discrimination is ignorance, and therefore knowledge has to be discriminatory. It must be an awareness of the distinction between the real and the unreal. This leads to the realization of oneness and perfection unit. Here I want to mention some more points. That is, for the attainment of knowledge, Vedanta Sara, the basic text on Advaita Vedanta, gives sadhana chatushtayam, 4 steps or 4 levels. They are nitya nitya vastu viveka, ihamutrartha phalabhoga viraha, shamadamadi sadhana shat sampat, and mumukshatvam. Without these 4, that is, the first is nitya anitya vastu viveka. One should know what is real and what is non-real. Then only he will go a step further. That is, viveka should be there. Nitya nitya vastu viveka. The second is iha mutrartha phala bhoga viraga. That is, vairagyam should be there. That is, we have to do away, get away, or we should avoid the fruits of the past actions, present actions, and the future actions also. The fruits of all our actions should not be expected by an aspirant who is on the path of Jnana Marga. The third one is Shamadamadi Sadhana Shat Sampat. These 6 treasures are Shama, Dama, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhana. And going through all the ordeals like this to attain knowledge, one should not go backward, or one should not see backward. One should not say that I am not interested in attaining mukti. That is the last thing, that is mumukshatvam. One should have a longing, a yearning for self-realization. This is just like saying that a man who joins a course and at the verge of completion of 6th semester or 4th semester, or before taking the examination, he will say that I don't want to continue. I have some domestic problems. This is just like he doesn't want to have the degree. If you want to have the degree, if you yearn for the attainment of or attaining the degree, you have to complete the ordeal of 1 month or 2 months. So similarly, one should have a strong feeling, strong longing to attain mukti, or else all the practices which is actually guided and supported by the Guru, it will be a futile attempt. So coming to Bhakti Yoga is the way of knowing God through intensity of feeling. The Bhakti Marga is the way of pure love, in which the object of love or devotion is not the finite or the limited, but the supreme. External worship, prayer, repeating God's name, meditation are the stages of bhakti through which the devotee attains a realization in feeling of the essential oneness of everything. This is the most convenient and most popular of all yogas. Now, the Indian philosophical tradition or Indian bhakti tradition prescribes Navavida bhakti. They are Shravanam Kirtanam, Smaranam Padasevanam, Archanam Vandanam, Dasyam Sakyam, and Atmanivedanam. This is actually beautifully explained in the compositions of Tyagaraja Swami in his musical compositions. He has composed around 9 songs emphasizing the Navavida Bhakti of our culture. Karma Yoga is a way of action or work, a continuous doing of selfless work or constant practice of non-attachment in all actions of life enables a man to rise above his self and to have a feeling of oneness with everything. Raja Yoga is the way to realization by controlling the mind and body. It is a way of physical and mental discipline and is based on the presupposition that bondage is due to the detracting activities of the body and the mind. Raja Yoga enables yogi to acquire certain excellence and powers, and finally leading to the realization of unity with the divine. These four different ways, but they will lead to the same goal. So regarding Raja Yoga, it is actually called Raja Yoga because it is actually patronized by royal kings. This royal king, for these royal kings, the man who taught or the saint who taught is the yogi Patanjali, and Patanjali says that if one has to attain to moksha or one has to attain mukti, he has to follow Ashtanga Marga, which is very, very popular nowadays, and the yoga has been practiced all over the world. The Ashtanga Marga, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dhyana, Dharana, Samadhi. So, once if you follow these 8 lingas, 8 limbs of yoga, one can attain moksha or kaivalya as it is advocated by Yogi Patanjali. This leads to liberation from the cycles of birth and death and rebirth and attainment of the highest spiritual state called moksha. Moksha is the final release from one's worldly conception of the self, the loosening of the shackles of experiential duality and re-establishment in one's own fundamental nature. To summarize, among all the surviving customs, Hinduism is the longest surviving philosophical and religious custom in India. Hindu philosophy is an organized doctrine based on the mystical experiences of the sages and seers. The teachings of the Hindu philosophy are provided in the Vedas and the Upanishads. Its glory is seen in the teachings of the Hindu Dharma, the theory of karma and rebirth, thus 6 darshanas and the 4 yogas. Hinduism, which is a symbol of India's spiritual vision, is based on the intuition of oneness and wholeness of the Supreme Spirit. To conclude, Hinduism, as we see today, is not different from the oldest one. Hinduism is the only religion which has got unity in diversity. Hinduism has got no single author. It is actually called Sanatana Dharma or eternal religion. It can be followed by anybody. If a man possesses humanity, individuality, neutrality, divinity and universality, he is called a Hindu. This is actually the values of a human being or values of the human mankind. Whenever a person follows and promotes the welfare of the society, then he is called a Hindu. So says Sir John Woodruff in his Seed of the Race. For further references, please see the e-text. Thank you.